We don't react to the outside perceptions. I'm just trying to explain to you how we view it, and I think that there's a lot of data that supports, and that's what I tried to put out there. Is everything perfect? No, but they did a lot of good work, and you don't get where we were without a solid group in front, and we don't react to the outside, but that's, I guess, the best way to put that.
These are a lot of teams that over the years that losing the Super Bowl, and I don't know what it is, but often struggle the next season and going forward. Is there anything different to mentally or how you guys have to approach going off when you're coming off a Super Bowl loss? Do you talk to people in the league that have been through that before to see how maybe it's different?
I haven't. We're going to rely on our players to rally around each other and create the cohesion that we had this year, and the playing for others that we had this year, and the unselfishness that we had this year. The offseason is time for players to be rewarded, and they all want to have their individual rewards at this point. And then once we get back, we've got to build that culture back up to where it was this year. And I think with the guys we've got coming back next year, it's not going to be a problem. So there's a high level of confidence in the guys in our locker room, and I think they got a taste of it. So I expect that they're going to want to be right back there.
They were talking about the draw of Burrow and free agency, what that can mean. Does that show itself mostly maybe in the second and third wave of free agency, more so than the first? Like you said, it's a money game.
It's always a money game at every level, but you want to be wanted, and I think we're in a position now to where people will look at us and say, you know what, if it works out financially, that's where I want to be, and then we'll see what we can get done.
Is that validating in a way the way that you guys have run? Obviously, there's been a lot of conversation about how you guys operate as a franchise. Has it been validating to kind of see that you guys, that become a part of the conversation and have the success that you had last year?
I mean, from a personnel standpoint, we're proud of the way we operate, and we're proud of the people that work in our organization, and so having success is great. It's great validation for our scouts. It's always positive when people can be rewarded for the hard work. We can go 4-12, and those guys are all going to work the exact same amount as you do when you go to the Super Bowl, and so it's nice when there's a reward at the end of it for these guys.
Given that success, is it easier to stay aggressive in free agency this offseason because you've seen what it can do for the team over the past couple of years?
Yeah, but free agency includes the guys that we don't have under contract that were part of our team this year. Mm-hmm. And so I think sometimes that gets lost in the shuffle. But free agency includes those guys. Some years your team has really guys that aren't going to be high-level guys that you pursue internally. Mm-hmm. And so you get maybe a little more external guys. And then this year will be a blend. We'll look outside of our organization, but we're certainly going to look within our organization for the guys who don't have contracts going forward that we want to continue to work with, and guys that got us where we got this year. And there's a number of them. And so, we know those guys all want to come back, and whether we can make the numbers work to get them all back or not is to be determined, but we're high on all of them.
How long ago does that seem? And could you have possibly dreamt it would have been like this, 2 years?
I never bought into that fake news story. You know that it was just a fake news story. I didn't hear a lot of fake stories so far this year, so that's good. But it feels like a while ago. It was an exciting time for us because we knew what we were getting. We knew what was going to be coming to our organization, and what we knew and what we thought showed up, and it's rewarding when that happens. But he's been great for us, and he's what everybody's looking for.
You've got to obviously just look at it from a business perspective, but when you hear and read all of the comments from fans about how badly they want Jesse Bates back, what does that mean to you?
We want him back too. Jesse's a success story for those of us that work in personnel. We drafted him, developed him. He's been a great player. He's highly coveted, and we want him to be a part of what's going on here too. And so it's important for us to work to try to get that done. And that's something that is going to be front and center. He's a guy we want.
Sorry, didn't mean to cut you off. When you went back through the season recap part of your process, was there any particular player on the current roster that maybe performed better than the expectations you had for them? Was there anyone that really stood out to you this season?
That's hard because our expectations of all the players that come in the building is very high, because that's why we're bringing them in. And so it's nice when they fulfill those expectations. So it wouldn't be a guy playing better than what we think he can. It would be a guy fulfilling what we think he can do. And that's really the secret to our team this year. We had a lot of guys fulfill their potential and work to the point to where they maximize what they could bring to the Cincinnati Bengals. And so I couldn't single any one person out, because you can do that as the tippy top of Jamar Chase and Higgins and Boyd, and you can do that all the way down to Stanley Morgan, who maximized his ability to help our football team win, and every other position is the same way. So, any good football team has guys that are maximizing themselves, and I was proud of our guys for doing that.
I guess that question stems from after the Super Bowl. I asked Logan Wilson what he learned about himself, and he said that he could play at this level. So would he be a player where you drafted him and thought really high of him, but the season that he had, what do you think of Logan Wilson's growth?
I think anytime you have a year like this, every player that you have's confidence grows, because now they know it's attainable. And Logan was fantastic. He got hurt. He got hurt on special teams play. We were kicking ourselves. We were like, oh, you got to be kidding me. And he was able to come back, and he played great when he came back, just as well as he was playing before he got hurt. And he wanted to come back, and he made sure that he worked hard to get back. And he's a huge piece of what we can do. Sometimes we see the abilities in these guys before they see it in themselves, because they need to go out and taste success before they really feel like they can do it. As guys who do what I do, you can see the traits and the abilities, and you can say, he's got it in him. He should be able to do it, and there it is, and he did it. And so it's fulfilling for everybody.
Speaking of Logan, any update? And the report out there is played the Super Bowl with a fully torn labrum.
He came back and probably wasn't 100%, but he wasn't restricted in any way, and wasn't playing with a brace at the end of the year or harness or anything. So sometimes you have procedures done to head off future problems, and you get a little more predictable outcome when you have procedures done, when there's time to get the procedures done. Could he have played another week? Not that any of us could have handled another week, but could he have played another week? Absolutely. He could have continued to play. And a lot of our guys had some cleanup procedures, and those things make things more predictable going forward into camp next year.
Other we've talked to since Zach about the contract. What have you guys seen out of him these first 3 years, and kind of what gives you encouragement that Zach is the guy for y'all moving forward?
Yeah. Zach's like a lot of our players. You see the traits in him, and he came in and achieved exactly what we saw in him and what he saw in himself, and the culture that he's brought to our organization, to our locker room, and to our players has been fantastic. And his ability to organize. We have not had easy years to be a head coach. We've had COVID, and we've had no combine, and we've had he's had everything thrown at him that could possibly be thrown at a new head coach. And his ability to organize and function under that stress is amazing. And everything we thought he was, and he is. It's the same thing with Joe Burrow. Everything we thought he was, he is. And when that comes together, that's great. And it's fantastic to have him under contract, and he's our head coach going forward, and that's what we want.
Do you feel like you guys have a better feel for each other now? I mean, you came in and you guys have grown, and what do you want? What does that player look like in free agency or whatever? Do you feel like now in year 3 you have that as much as better than you ever have with him?
Yeah, I think the longer you work with somebody, the more rapport you have with them. We have pretty good rapport starting out. I think we view the world of football pretty similarly, and what we value and what we want in our players. And in our schematics and all those things, I think we view everything very, very similarly, which was an attraction. to Zach was because of the way he views football and how he views team building and so forth. So, yeah, I mean, the longer you work with somebody, the better you get to know them, but I think we know each other pretty well.
A common theme in your last two free agent classes was guys that a lot of success in the postseason, and now that the team has had that as a whole, is that as important when you're looking at free agents this year to go get guys that have been there, done that, so to speak?
You want guys that are confident in themselves, and a lot of times that stems from success on the football field, but it's not an overarching analysis that we're doing. You know, we've got a lot of leadership from within our building now that maybe we didn't have, and so that's probably a pretty good way to put it, is that we don't necessarily need the outside leadership as much as we did, but we'll take it if we can find it, and I think it's important if you can find it.
The three offensive linemen, and are you waiting on what's out there, who declares what their price is, or do you have a price already in mind and you're willing to spend that money?
Well, our job is to put a value on every player that's available to us, and it's a value based on the player's ability and what he can bring to us, and we try to stay with those values. We don't want guys who are being paid far above what they actually bring to the football team. That creates issues in other areas of your football team. So our job, and it's a tough job, is to put a value on every player. What is this player worth in today's football, in this year, in this market, and try to stay close to those values rather than, just because you pay somebody more doesn't mean they play better. They just get paid more, and that's less money you can spend on helping your team in another area. So, yeah, the market is what the market is, and we try to analyze that, and we try to understand, here's what these guys are getting. Is that something we want to wade into with this player? Because we don't think it's reflective of what we're going to get as a team in return. It's a hard analysis.
And I guess what I'm trying to get at, I didn't ask it very well, but how important is it not to quote unquote fall in love with a player and say we want this player no matter the cost?
Yeah, we typically don't do that. Sometimes we fall in love with them when they're in our building, though. But the ones that are coming from outside, we typically keep a level head, and we have a vision for a guy, and sometimes you can let that vision run away, and you can say, wouldn't that be perfect? He's the perfect guy, but it doesn't mean you're going to get him. So you have to have other options available to you too.
How do you feel about Jonah Williams at left tackle? How do you feel like he's played, and do you feel like that's a position that's good for him moving forward?
Yeah, I think Jonah played pretty well this year, to be honest with you. I didn't have a problem. Every tackle gets beat. Every tackle gets beat. But I know that the other players on the offensive line and the other players on offense have confidence in Jonah, as they do with the other offensive linemen. Are there improvements that he and the group can make? Sure. There are improvements that can be made, but we feel fortunate that Jonah's around, and again, he's an AFC champion too, just like Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase and Duke Tobin. So he earned it.
What do you think of Jackson Carman too? He was a guy you thought highly of.
We think highly of him. He's a young player that's developing. He's got a lot of physical traits. He's got a taste of what the NFL is all about. He provided valuable snaps for us, and we feel like he's on track.
How's his back? Is his back over there?
When you're evaluating the internal free agents, how beneficial is it to know their personality, know what they do on social media?
It's easier to evaluate the internal ones because you know exactly the role and the fit and what they can do for you and what they bring to you. And so a lot of times you prefer the internal candidates as opposed to somebody from the outside with a similar skill set, but some unknowns that you might not like when they get in. If you like the guy you have, it's good to stay with them if you can. And it doesn't always happen, but if you can.
Philosophically, when it comes to offensive line in general, the thought of you'd love to have 5 stars, but that's probably not realistic. Is it more important to make sure you don't have any liabilities than it is that you have stars on the offensive line?
It's hard
that plays together.
It's such a tough position to play, and they're playing against such great athletes, and there aren't enough superstars and top-level guys to go around to 32 teams. There just aren't. And there's not enough to service all the colleges. It's just a very demanding, tough position. It's big athletes, and those are the rarest people on the planet. So yes, we want big athletes, but we know that they're hard to come by and hard to find, and that's our job to try to get the best ones that are available to us.
I mean, I guess that can be a part of a free agent or draft philosophy too. Is it's not